Welcome, I'm Babadito, and here's the video. So, today we're going to be drawing some Plaid. So here is a little base that I have, and then I actually put a shirt over it already. Before we get into it though, I need to say, here's some things to keep in mind. You need to know some basic anatomy at least, and you need to know where the clothing folds are going to be. So I'm going to link a playlist and a video down below. Both are by Winged Canvas, so go check this out if you need to brush up on anatomy, and the clothing fold one is really good. But otherwise, we can just get right into it. So I am actually going to show my process for this. So this is obviously, like, you can do it however you're gonna do it. But I'm just going to show my process, and hopefully that will help some people out, because a couple people have asked me how I draw flannel, and I don't really know how to answer them. I've been drawing flannel traditionally and digitally for a while now, so I thought I would just come on here and try to show it this way. Okay, so we have the basic colors down. I made a folder where I put this layer, and I just made this new layer. So let's start with a basic plaid, which is this one. This is actually called Buffalo Plaid. So we're going to just kind of look at that reference and try to do what it's doing. So we're going to need, I think, just 2 layers. So we're going to call this 1, and we will make that a clipping layer, a clipping mask, I mean. And for this one, I think I'm just going to go with multiply, and I'm going to stay on the same color that I used to color in the shirt. This one's like the easiest one, right? Because it's just 2 colors pretty much, where it's multiply layer 1, multiply layer 2. So, and you can obviously use like overlay or whatever you want. That is one thing to keep in mind. Don't go for exactly what color you want, because it's not going to, like, if I wanted this to be green or something, it's going to look like kind of muddy, right? So, like, you have to figure out how to do what you want to do. But we will talk about that in a minute. First, let's just get the basic shapes down. Now, this is kind of what I've seen people struggle with, is how to sort of go along with the lines. And what I do, see, I just messed it up there. What I do is I turn off the correction. I don't use that for this because I find it very annoying. Turn off the correction, try to keep in mind what kind of fabric this is. I am imagining this is kind of a thinner flannel, so it's not like real flannel. It just has a flannel pattern, and I kind of just go through this first pass and I clean it up as I'm going along. And for this, you have to, like, sort of think about where the seam is. So one seam is here for the shoulders, and then you also have to think about where the seam is that actually connects up here, for most flannels anyway. So I'm just going to go down like this. Again, you gotta keep with the curves. Now that is like one of the harder parts of this, which I think is why, like, yeah, it is hard. It is, but if you do it enough, then you'll get better at it. So this is kind of just the way that I do this. So I go through, I try to make it even, although this side, like, is showing more, so, like, it's not even, but that's okay. And obviously this is way different traditionally. Alright, so we're also going to add these. Now I like to off-center them from the lines because I think it looks better. I think it looks more realistic. Same with these. I'm just going to add some... I'll just add 1 stripe. So there we go. This is the first layer. Looks kind of like a pajama shirt right now. Now we're going to add another one, call this 2, make it a multiply layer again. And now you're going to see where it's going to start actually looking like this reference right here. Now, obviously I'm not going to do these tiny little stripes. I'm going to simplify that and just make it, you know, this medium. So here, we'll start up at the collar. And usually I like to try to, like, curve this around somehow, but that part's kind of hard with the collar, like that part's hard. So just go like this. And you always want to keep these layers separate at the beginning. I actually usually never merge them together even after I'm done with the piece, because it's way easier to go and clean up like this part and every part, because it's just easier to go through like a section at a time, like this front bit. Then we just kind of clean this up. There we go. Yeah, so I just go through a section at a time and then I clean it up after. But obviously you can do whatever works for you best. Okay, so we're going to quickly go and clean this up a little bit. I actually don't like this line, so we're just gonna get rid of that and redo it. We'll just try to clean this up. So that's kind of how I do that. Didn't mean to zoom out the whole way. Now we can just do the other side real quick. And if it is the straight lines that you're struggling with, I mean, these, not that these are straight, but if it's the lines that you're struggling with to like keep them steady enough to be happy with it, you should definitely do exercises where, here, I'm just gonna, you should definitely do exercises like this where you put one dot, and you can do this traditionally as well, and then you just, and you fill a whole page like that, because it will help with your hand-eye coordination and help with your straight lines. So if you need help with that sort of thing, there's an exercise that you can do. Alright, so here is our first flannel. I think I'm actually going to add one more little, going back to layer 1 and add one more little stripe right along the edge here, just because there's not enough there. So that does create a little bit of a tangent, but we are just going to say that that is how it was manufactured. So this is number 1 that we have done. Very basic. See, and now because this is an example, I am going to merge these together, but not after I make a duplicate layer of the shirt. So here we're going to call this number 1. So this is our buffalo plaid. Very basic. Looks alright though. And now we can move on to our second, which gets a little bit more complicated, doesn't it? So we're gonna say this pink is the base tone, and actually to make this easier to see, I'm just gonna change the color of this real quick. We have this base color, right? And then we have white. We have white stripes. We have this sort of like mid-tone-ish. So like this one is definitely harder to simplify, right? So what we're going to do is we're gonna see how the multiply layer looks. We'll start with this dark line, which is like pretty thin, and again I'm gonna simplify this, but you can see there's actually like 2 thinner ones here and then one that's 2 like pixels, I guess, right? So we have to keep that in mind as well for this pattern. So here we're gonna make this brush smaller. We're going to go 1, 2. And I'm just gonna do the thinner lines first. Right, so I'm gonna say the thin lines are gonna be here, so that's 1. Here's the second one. There's the second one, and then we're going to make the thicker line, so I'm going to turn this up just a tiny bit. And if this was like a bigger shirt, which I'm actually going to just put a thick line here and erase that. But like if it was a bigger shirt, there would be a thicker line here, and this would be the other one, but because of the space in between, it actually doesn't really make sense to put that there. So I'm just gonna put the tiniest little thing of it there so that we know like what's supposed to be there. For this one, for the sleeves, we actually get to have that at least on one side. Alright, so there is our first one, except I didn't do the collar. The two thinner stripes. There's not really space for the thicker stripes. But there we go. I think the base shirt should actually probably be white. So let me make the background gray. So base shirt is white, then we have these brown stripes, which I'll probably shift the colors of later. And now we're going to go to this color right here. Oh, I made an add layer. Let's make this multiply and see what happens. Yeah, okay. So this one has very thick stripes, right? And I'm not, like, we're just going to ignore the other things. So that kind of, I know that that heavily simplifies it. But that's, like, I'm not going to sit here and do these little lines for hours. Oh, I completely forgot to do the other brown lines. So actually, let me do that first. So, and these ones, it goes 1, 2, 3, little one, 1, probably 2, 3, little one, little one. So, also keep that in mind. And I'm just going to leave some space there to come back. And this one I can actually just kind of use this side as a gauge for where I need to have the other stripes. Alright, honestly this already looks kind of good. Now we're going to make the brush even smaller and do the little stripes. So they're kind of like directly underneath, like in between this one and above this one. So I'm imagining it probably goes like that on both sides. Although actually it doesn't show that. I'm gonna put that anyway, just because I feel like that makes more sense as a pattern. Okay, and that is the brown stripes done. So here is this one without the other layer on top of it, in case you want to see what that looks like. I know it's not the cleanest thing ever, but it is just an example. And now we can move on to the third one, which will be this pink color. Not really sure what layering I should do, but for now we're just going to stick to multiply, and I'll probably change that later. So this one has pretty thick things, and the thing you have to keep in mind is that like this is one grid and this is another. So the boxes that intersect are actually in between these lines right here. And I'm trying to follow this pattern, but I will be honest, it's kind of hard. forgot to add the little lines there. Sorry about that, guys. So that is our first layer of pink. Now we're going to go for our second layer of pink, aka layer number 4. So this actually sits right on top of one of these thinner, right on top of one of these lines. So that would be... I missed another one of these small lines, didn't I? Yeah, I did. Sorry, guys. It's like, it's hard to see those. So this is the thin line. This is a normal line, thin line, normal line. And then right on top of that normal line, of the bottom normal line, sits another pink. So I'm actually gonna zoom in for this and get like right on top of there. And you could go through and tediously like try to get this perfect, but I don't stress about it that much, to be honest. There's also not a bottom one there. Huh? How did I mess this up so much? This is what we have so far. Now, it does look quite different than the reference, but we do have one more layer to go, technically 2 more layers to go. So we're on stripe number 5. We're going to take this, and I think I'm actually going to make this an overlay layer, and I'm going to put this up here, even though it's number 5. Actually, let me take that back. Let me put it underneath the brown, but over top of the pink. So like this. So it's over top of the pink, but it's underneath the brown. And this one actually sits right in between the thin layers here. So let me quickly just go like this so I can show you guys what I'm talking about. It sits right on top of and below. Like that. Didn't mean to zoom out that much. And then the other ones are just kind of like boop, 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 boop. So let's see if we can line this up actually. So it's between kind of here-ish and between this space here. And I'm not liking how the overlay is looking, so let's try a few different ones. Add isn't bad. Dodge isn't bad. Multiply is like the opposite effect of what we want. I think we'll go with add for now at least. So we're just gonna go back to doing this between these two. And yes, this is more pixelated than I usually work. It's just, I drew a whole body instead of just the flannel, and I don't know why I did that, because, like, you guys don't need to, like, all that matters is the flannel. So, I mean, we could technically turn these pants into, like, a plaid pattern. I actually have a hard time looking at patterns. Like, I have a hard time figuring them out. It kind of messes with my brain. I'm not very good at puzzles, and I have a hard time sometimes figuring out certain patterns, especially patterns like this. Alright, now let's see where we need to put this other layer, the 6th layer for this shirt, the 2nd pink layer. Although I messed it up by doing those lines, but I'll just honestly kind of whatever. This sleeve is wrong. Sorry guys, I got impatient. It doesn't add anything more, does it? No, it doesn't. Huh. Alright, so I will teach you guys how to fix that in a moment. how it actually hasn't made a difference, even though like this is on one layer and these other stripes are on a separate layer. So that should be making the in-between spaces, those little boxes where they intersect, so that should make them brighter, but it's not. So this sleeve is kind of wrong. Don't pay attention to the white stripes on that. So we could change it to a different kind of layer, like an overlay. We could turn down the opacity on both of the add layers. Turn one of them to a screen layer. The problem with add layers is that if you just keep adding and adding, like you're not gonna get anywhere. So let's see how hard light looks with both of these. That, I feel like, actually looks closer to the reference. So let's also mess with the hue, and this is why I did it with the display rather than how I normally record Metabang, so you guys can see this. So let's just up the saturation and the brightness, I feel like that's better? Alright, so this does look kind of crazy, right? So here's the reference, and here's what we ended up with, and that's kind of how I try to look at a reference of a flannel and take from it. So I have a couple more that we could do. This one's pretty cute, so I feel like I'm gonna do that one, but I'm gonna skip this one, just because we've already seen what the tiny lines are like with this reference. And then I will show you on an actual character rather than this example. So here's our second flannel. Alright, and we're back in business. So let's take this color and change that. Now this one is going to be pretty simple indeed. We're gonna make this a different green color, I think. And actually, this first one, I don't think we need to make into a multiply, but we will anyway, just in case. So I usually, when I'm doing flannels, I usually do multiply, overlay, or burn. Those are like the main layers that I use for the darker ones. For the lighter ones, I usually use add, divide, screen, burn too, honestly, and hard light. So here's a big squares. So we're only going to put one here, one here. Let me do that one better. We'll do part of one here, and one there. So here's number 1, here's number 2. Now you could like let the flannel go into the buttons and stuff. In fact, I've done that too. But just for today's examples, I'm not gonna do that. For this example specifically, I'm gonna leave the collar and the things like that. I think in this one I left the cuffs as well, just because like you don't need to put that much. Like I feel like the very tiny details on the very tiny cuffs at certain points, it's like if this is for your main character design, where like that's their main outfit, that's like you're not gonna want to do that like a billion times. And if it's a one-off thing, then like sure, put in the extra detail. Okay, here's number 3, and we're gonna do this red layer, and this one's very, very tiny, and it intersects kind of like here about. Like this is kind of where the boxes are. Okay, this will be layer 4, aka red number 2. The nice thing about these layers is like you can turn off the green ones if you want to just do this and then do this and stack them together. Okay, and this will be layer number 5. Here, I'm gonna do what I talked about earlier, sort of, with just the add, but turn the opacity down. Okay, layer number 6. We're gonna go add again and turn the opacity down, but not as much as the first time. Okay, so on the second add layer, I have it down to 37%. On the other one, I have it on 28. So it's a slight difference. You could do it the exact same if you wanted to, but I do it this way just because the difference is easier to see. And there we go. This is our third little flannel. That one was pretty easy to do. And just to say again, this is the first one we did. This is the first example we have, just basic 2 multiply layers over top of the base layer. This crazy one, which has hard light layers, multiply layers, and you could use overlay layers, and other things to make the colors different if you wanted to. And this one was add layers with the opacities down, multiply, and that's it. So those are our 3 examples, and now let me go to an actual illustration and show you how to do that. Okay, now I'm just going to open an illustration that has no flannel, but or plaid. I mean, I don't know why I keep saying flannel. Like this is supposed to be a plaid tutorial, not flannel tutorial. But let me just go into Emily. Oh, I merged all those together. Darn! Okay, let me find a different illustration then. Alright, here's one where I didn't merge the layers. I'm just going to copy the shirt, unclip this, make everything else unclipped. So that this is going directly onto this and not the rest of it. This is an illustration that's kind of old at this point. I mean, it's from 2024, so it's not like old, but it's old enough. So I'm just gonna take this shirt and see if I can adapt it to be plaid with our little method that we used with the multiply layers. So I'm just going to take the same color as the shirts, have it set to multiply, get some bigger stripes. So this is not actually supposed to be like a flannel shirt, it's just supposed to be like a cotton work shirt, but we're just going to go with it. And the thing with this one that I wanted to show is like the folds in the clothing. And how that's really going to affect like where the lines go, you know? Because like here, it's going to get cut off because of this fold. And I actually didn't draw a seam there. That's really weird. If there was a seam here, which there's supposed to be, then a line would go right here. So I'm just going to put it there anyway. I know that that part looks weird because there's no seam when there should be. Now we're going to take a second multiply layer, like so. And you can see this one I'm going over the buttons. And it still looks fine, so you could go over the buttons if you wanted to. So this one's going to be up, under, over, under, over. Okay, now these lines we actually don't need to worry about because of the clipping mask. Now I could leave it here, or I could add a overlay layer, again, all with the same color, and I'm just going to go in between, right in the middle of these 2 lines. And this is actually going to fold in like that, so we won't really see that, but let me get this line right first. Here, we'll do this real quick too. And so then we'll add another one. Again, just overlay with the same color. I'm all just using the same beige color. And this color I'm actually going to want to shift. So I'm not going to keep it with this because I feel like this looks pretty plain and boring. So let me just quickly do this. So this is what we have, right? Not bad, not bad. But I mean, I feel like this other layer could be different. So let's alpha lock it and let's try just a completely different color. Here, let's try pink. See, now that doesn't look that great, right? Just because it's pink. So let's see, how about this purplish color? I feel like that actually doesn't look bad. If we turn down the opacity a little bit, and what if we changed the other one to the same? Now that looks a little weird, doesn't it? I feel like it does. So if we left one of them yellow, and we change one of them to be pink, I want to see what this would look like if I had used burn. So you see what happens when I change multiply to burn. It completely changes what color it is. So definitely keep that in mind when you're doing stuff like that, which I actually kind of like the burn look better. I don't know that I like it with this pink, so I think I'm going to change that back to the beige. Well, how about blue? How about this like purplish bluish? Because that kind of matches the aesthetic right now. That looks nice. Okay, so we found a color combination that looks nice. With this color as an overlay, the beige color as an overlay, and these two lines as burn layers. So we'll just merge all these together and we will compare the original to the one that we just did. And yes, the shading is off because I previously rendered this. So if I were to completely render this, like this part again, it would probably look better. And I can do a little bit of a mock-up for that, just to kind of overlap that part where it's like supposed to be darker, but it isn't. So here is the original shirt that we started with, and here is the plaid version. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please let me know. If you have any tips for how to draw plaid and just any sort of pattern like that where it has to overlay and intersect, then you can go ahead and talk about it in the comments below. And I will see you next time. Bye!